Good morning, everyone. We might get started. It's 1 minute past 11. Thank you all for joining us. Sending a warm welcome to everyone here with us today. Happy Monday. The theme of the webinar today is not-for-profit digital technologies across Australia and Queensland, key statistics and actions for your organisation. So I'm stepping in for Stacey today, who is our manager for sector development at QCOS. Stacey was involved in coordinating this session, so I'd like to acknowledge her effort in pulling this webinar together. I'd like to also begin by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of this land, the oldest continuing cultures in human history. I acknowledge the Yagara and Turrbal people of the lands on which I work and live here in Meanjin, Brisbane. I'd like to pay my respects to all First Nations colleagues joining us online today. QCOS thanks First Nations people for the gift of the Uluru Statement from the Heart. We look forward to supporting work leading to a successful referendum to enshrine a First Nations voice to Parliament in the Australian Constitution, followed by Makarrata and Treaty. QCOS welcomes the invitation to walk with First Nations people in a movement of the Australian people for a better future. For those online, please feel free to join us in acknowledging country where you are today through the chat function as well. So my name is Amy Dellett. I'm the Data and Reporting Analyst in the Research and Policy team at QCOS, and I coordinate our Research and Evaluation Network webinars and our Research and Evaluation online forum. So for the agenda today, I'm going to give a quick 5-minute introduction, and then I'm going to hand it straight over to our guest speaker for today's event, Marcus Harvey from Infoxchange, who will give the presentation. There will be some time for some Q&A after Marcus's presentation, and then I'll go and spend about 5 minutes highlighting some upcoming opportunities that you may like to get involved with. So a couple of housekeeping things to note. By default, you will be on mute, but your camera is turned off, I believe, today. So this session will be recorded. For today, if during Q&A you would like to ask a question, please write the question in the chat pane, or you can use the raise your hand emoji and then take yourself off mute to ask the question. After this session, we will be sending you a post-event email with all the key resources, as we've mentioned, and a copy of the slides and a link to the recording as well. Importantly, we'll also be sharing the link to this year's digital technology in the not-for-profit sector survey. So just to give some context for the webinar today, QCOS and Infoxchange are working together this year to deliver 4 webinars focusing on digital technology in the not-for-profit sector, and this is the second one for the year. The first session was an introduction to cybersecurity, and this session focuses on statistics for Queensland from the digital technology in the not-for-profit sector survey from last year, and some key actions for your own organisation in response to the emerging data for 2023. In addition to the cybersecurity webinars, QCOS is also connected with Infoxchange through the National Data Catalyst Network. And we also have an agreement in place with Infoxchange where we receive Infoxchange Service Directory searches data, which we then visualize and make available to our members through our QCOS Town Hall events. So the digital technology in the not-for-profit sector survey helps Infoxchange build a really robust picture of the state of play of technology in our sector, which is really helpful to all of us. So I often refer to these stats in the report for context for our Research Evaluation Network webinars, obtaining information around data infrastructure and outcome measurement. So we would really appreciate and encourage you all to get behind the survey and take 15 minutes out of your day to complete it. So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce Marcus Harvey. It's fantastic that we have Marcus here with us to unpack some of the key data and insights for our sector in Queensland. Marcus has more than 2 decades of experience helping not-for-profits use technology effectively. Marcus leads Infoxchange's digital transformation program with the goal of helping more than 10,000 organisations build their capacity and transform their operations to achieve measurable outcomes with their clients and communities. Marcus is keen to share his experience with our members and answer any specific questions you have to enable you on your technology technology journey. So welcome, Marcus. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks so much. It's fantastic to be here and to talk through an area that's a bit of a passion of mine, how we can use technology more effectively across the sector. Just checking, Amy, you can see my screen okay?
Yes, wonderful, perfect.
Beautiful. Um, so I would like to, thanks very much for your acknowledgement of country. I'm joining you today from Boonwurrung land in the Kulin Nation. It's a beautiful crisp morning down here, and it's lovely that it's not raining after a bucket of rain over the weekend. In terms of an agenda, want to talk a fair bit about non-profit tech and how non-profits have responded to life beyond COVID and the need to support remote working, as well as how the Queensland sector is rising to the challenge. There's some variation between sort of digital tech in the rest of the country and in Queensland. And we'll explore that throughout. I think part of the driver is because when we look back through 4 or 5 years, there wasn't quite the same discrepancy. And I think COVID, the lockdowns, particularly in New South Wales and Victoria, have driven a few organisations to make change particularly quickly, and we'll explore that a little bit. When we think about non-profit technology, we break it into 5 domains: tech foundations, systems and data, digital marketing, IT management, and cybersecurity. So we want to explore those a bit with you, capabilities that non-profits are looking to grow, and roadmaps to build your own capabilities. Talk very briefly about the Digital Transformation Hub and Data Catalyst Network, just to give you an inkling of what's there with links for more information and some key actions you can take to strengthen your organisation's capability, as well as questions and discussion. I will encourage you, please, to ask questions as we go, because there's nothing like asking a question when the data's on the slide in front of you, but there will be a bit of time at the end as well if you've got questions. And Amy, I'm trusting you to keep me honest and point out when there's questions in case I miss it in the chat. So, if you don't know about Infoxchange, we are a non-profit social enterprise. We've been around for about 25 years, and we've got about 200 staff, major office in Brisbane. I wish I worked up there. It's a lot nicer than down in Melbourne. And we've been busy working for the last few years, particularly in a few areas. We've got a client and case management system that's used around the country by about 2,500 organisations. We've got our Ask Izzy, which is supported by our service directory, as well as we do a lot of support for organisations to build their digital capability, which is part of why I'm talking to you today and what I lead. The technology survey, Amy mentioned this before, our 2023 survey is now open. You'll see Queensland numbers in a second, but we're really keen to see Queensland get more responses than any other state and territory or more than New Zealand. So we would really encourage you to put your responses in so that we can make it even more relevant to everyone on the call today. This is last year's survey data. So just so that you're aware, 2022, we had about 600 odd responses, and there was 52 from Queensland, about 8%. So definitely a pretty solid response. It's interesting, across the nation, about 57% of respondents work across multiple service areas. So that might be disability versus family violence versus counselling versus environmental services. But in Queensland, there was about 62%. And one of the conversations we always have with organisations is if you work across too many service areas, often your technology costs can start to ratchet up. So it's about getting economies of scale and making sure you're working in service areas that really support you, because you don't want to sort of have 15 different systems, which some organizations do, one per service area, which makes it very complex for staff and very hard to get a view of services. Big range of very small, 1 to 5, through to very large organisations, broadly in line from our perspective with what the sector has. Key findings. 57% of not-for-profits have all the infrastructure in place to support remote working, is what people said. In Queensland, that was a little bit less, and that was one of the areas we saw significant change over the. And yes, we will have access to slides afterwards. That was one of the significant areas that we saw a lot of change, particularly in Victoria and to a lesser extent in New South Wales, with organisations all of a sudden moving to remote working and having to get that technology infrastructure in place. Queensland, it's also really important, particularly with your distances, to support people with remote working, and particularly when they're out working with clients. And you're down at about the 46%, so a little bit less than the average. Both in Australia, New Zealand, and Queensland, the number one priority to better respond out of COVID-19 is building staff digital skills. And that's really interesting because organizations made a significant change in their technology environment. Many staff then had to upskill their own skills, or the organization had to support them to upskill their skills in order to work effectively with the new technology that was deployed. In Queensland, 42% of organisations provide cybersecurity awareness training to their staff. I've got a free session which we'll cover later on, which you can share with your own staff, which hopefully will bring that closer to the 100%. In Queensland, 31% of organisations reported their information systems allow them to understand their impact. So if that's something that we're very passionate about, thinking about what do we do, how do we measure it, what's the impact of our services, and so there's a good opportunity for change there in terms of better measuring the impact of services, even though it is tough and you do have to use proxies. Almost 80% of organisations plan to move a significant proportion to the cloud or are already there. And in Queensland, about 40% of organisations indicated that most of their staff are confident using technology. So again, there's still a little bit of opportunity to support staff and feel confident to use technology in their roles. Those were the key findings from last year's survey. We're going to dive into a few bits now, living with COVID being the first one. It's interesting, that the proportion of Queensland not-for-profits that have the infrastructure in place to support remote working is a little bit less than 50%. And we have seen a lot of organisations move dramatically in that space. Only 19% are nearly there, nearly got all the infrastructure in place to support remote working in Queensland. And for us, that really demonstrates there is opportunities to move faster and to leverage the cloud more effectively. It's nice to see that now about 4 in 5 organisations, both in Queensland and across Australia and New Zealand, give staff the option to work remotely. So if you're one of those organisations but don't yet have the infrastructure or the systems in place to support staff working remotely, there's some opportunities in there. We're a hybrid workplace at Infoxchange. We support staff to work in the office and at home. Most people have a bit of time in each, sort of 2-3 days a week, apart from those staff that are more remote and can't get into an office. From a digital capability and skills perspective, as I mentioned earlier, building staff skills to better respond to challenges was the #1 priority for organisations as a result of COVID. Um, Given that, it is a little bit of a concern that more than 50% of organisations staff say that they didn't have training to help people adjust to the impacts of technology change. It was 42% of organisations in Queensland provided staff with access to training opportunities, particularly around that digital skills, digital capability space. 46% of organisations in Queensland said that their staff were confident or better in terms of their ability to use their systems and technology to perform their roles. So there really is some opportunity there, and certainly in the work that we've been doing, we do find that supporting staff to build those technology skills, particularly for those individuals that might be excellent at working with people in difficult situations. Sometimes they're very skilled at those human sides of relationships and supporting people. They're not so good at the technology side. So supporting our staff and our volunteers to lift that is really important. From an information systems perspective, this is a real challenge for quite a few of the organisations that we work with. And measuring impact and effective use of data is a really key conundrum for many organisations. 31% of participants last year agreed that their primary system allows them to understand the impact of their services. So there's particularly with the way that funders are moving towards expecting this as a prerequisite almost. This is an area that we really need to work with. It's not easy, and certainly in the work we do with organisations, it's all about let's understand our impact, let's have a theory of change, let's understand how we measure both our activities, our outputs and our outcomes. And we won't get everything right? Let's work on it on a service by service basis. But the act of measuring and starting that journey takes you forward, and I'm sure that the research and evaluation network that Amy runs, I'm sure you'll be way higher than that 31%, but it's really important to start on that journey. About 35% of organisations still use Office, that's Word or Excel, to manage and deliver services. So there's a bit of opportunity there. And about almost 80% of organisations in Queensland use more than one system, or staff need to use multiple systems to understand the services that have been provided over time. And again, that comes back to the more that you've got your data in a single system, the more you're able to understand the journey of an individual and the history, and support them in a holistic manner. So we do find that very important. We do find government programs are part of the problem there, because by siloing information into their own systems, forcing you sometimes to use a system that you don't have access to like you'd like, it really means that you all of a sudden become very siloed in your ability to provide those services. But this is really important in terms of thinking about how we do provide services and the impact that we have as organisations. Just as it's important to have impact, it's also important not to ignore cybersecurity. About 42% of Queensland not-for-profits provide some sort of cybersecurity or privacy awareness training for staff. There's a whole range of reasons why organisations might not have an information security policy, but from our perspective, making sure you've got some basics in place from a cybersecurity perspective is really important. We did earlier this year a bit of a research across the Asia Pacific region. 1 in 6 organisations suffered a cybersecurity breach in the past 12 months. And something every time I get involved with this, supporting an organisation, everyone always says, oh my gosh, it would have taken me so much less time to eliminate the risk of a breach than it would recovering from a breach afterwards. So if your organisation hasn't got some basics, and I'll cover the basics in a few slides, like multi-factor authentication, about 39% of Queensland organisations are yet to implement. There's some really key and simple activities that you can take. In terms of top priorities and challenges, 2022 for Queensland, its website, its staff digital capabilities, and then its data and information security / social media from a priorities perspective. Biggest challenges from a Queensland perspective, it's getting affordable access to skilled technical resources, even at Infoxchange. That's something that we struggle with a little bit, or more than a little bit sometimes, because it is always a challenge. But working out what you can do and what the best way is really important, with budget and funding being the second biggest challenge. I do want to talk a little bit about non-profit digital capability now, and just how organisations can build their own capability, because when we think about digital capability, we think about it in 5 separate domains. The first domain being tech foundations. That's your PCs, your networks, your servers, telephones, email, file sharing, collaboration infrastructure. And from our perspective, this is one of the areas that if you're going to enable remote working, it's really important to get right. Because if your files are stuck on a file server, or you're still using paper, it's really hard for people to work remotely, whether that be from home or whether that be out at a client site, or where a client is, or running day programs. Second domain being systems and data. They're your systems that support delivery of services, your corporate information systems like HR and finance, and the data and surrounding processes to measure your outcomes, your activities, and your impact. Third area, digital marketing. That's website, email, social media, outreach, etc., fundraising systems. That's all about how can we attract new funds, new supporters, new volunteers to support our organisation and achieve our mission. IT management, all about strategy, planning, governance, etc., and then cybersecurity to keep your information and devices safe so that your client and staff data is protected. So they're the 5 domains that we think are important from a non-profit digital technology perspective. And what we've done is we've worked to say for each of those domains, you can be in a challenged area, e.g. you've got some real conundrums and non-profit tech doesn't enable you very well. You could be at the basic level, and that may well be appropriate if you're a smaller organisation and don't need the same level of robustness. That's where you've got some foundations in place, but things might not be as resilient as they potentially could be. Intermediate is very much around, where you've got solid foundations and sound capabilities, so that they will support you to deliver reliable, efficient and effective services. Some organisations move into the advanced space in those domains, and that's really about where it's, where it's a strategic imperative for you to use technology well. As an example, if you're a World Vision, and effectively in Australia, one of the main things you do is raise funds and for international aid projects. Digital marketing may well be a key capability area that you want to get up into the advanced, because that's very much what you're about. Each of those 5 domains then maps into the different capability levels, as you can see here. So for instance, if you're at the tech foundations and you've got unreliable PCs or infrastructure and it's hard to share information, you're at the challenged area. If for your systems and data, that's your service delivery on operational systems, data and analytics. If you've got a reasonable systems to support service delivery and finances, and your activity and contractual deliverables are measured and reported, you might be at the basic level. For digital marketing, including websites, social media events and fundraising, if you've got an engaging, responsive website and social media presence that's supported by EDM campaigns and you achieve tracked outcomes, you could be at the intermediate level. If from an IT management perspective, IT is really seen as a strong partnership between IT and the executive and staff. So you might have the exec talking about, what are the priorities for next year? How do we get bang from our buck in terms of our IT spend? Staff have input into those priorities because they've certainly got a sense about what works and what doesn't. Everyone's keen to innovate and you've got a proven disaster recovery and business continuity plan. You'll be up at that advanced level. And cybersecurity, if your device is at least auto patch and your induction covers a bit of cyber education, then you're down at that basic level. So those are the sort of the key domains and the key capabilities that we think are important. We feel organisations or non-profits shouldn't be in the challenge space. They might be in the basic space, they might be in the intermediate space. Basic or intermediate or advanced, it's very much up to how important tech is for you in the services you deliver. Each of those different domains offers different benefits. So for instance, if the number one priority for your organisation was helping staff to collaborate and work effectively, it might be technology foundations is where you want to focus your improvement efforts. If your biggest challenge is about reporting and efficient service delivery processes and client outcomes, whether you're a membership organisation, whether you support individuals experiencing disadvantage, whether you support environmental causes, you probably want to focus in your systems and data. If your number one priority is to attract new funders, supporters, volunteers, staff and clients, you might want to focus in digital marketing. If you think, oh my golly gosh, I just don't get bang for buck with my IT investment, you probably should focus in IT management. And if you've had a breach or your board, as many boards are now, becoming more and more concerned around cybersecurity and protecting your reputation, staff and client information, it's probably cyber that needs to be your priority. We are seeing a lot of organisations start to focus on cyber with the Medicare breach, with the Optus breach, and that's because essentially, I'm sure no one on this call's in this situation, I hope, organisations have ignored cybersecurity for a number of years because they've had other priorities. And we're now starting to see a lot of not-for-profits actually boards asking some difficult questions and organisations starting to give it some significant attention as well. Which from our perspective is a good thing because it means that we're thinking about what do we need to tighten up and protect effectively. I'm going to walk through very quickly a couple of roadmaps. Then I'm going to talk about for each of the 5 domains. I'm going to do these reasonably quickly, but the reason I'm doing it is because we've got the slides that you'll get afterwards that gives you more detail if you're interested, and obviously you can reach out as well through the Digital Transformation Hub if you've got questions. So non-profit tech foundations roadmap. We actually feel that organisations should pick a non-profit collaborations system or platform, either Google Workspace or Microsoft 365. We actually don't care which one. horses for courses, longer conversation that I want to go into as to what's right for you. It depends. But just pick one, please. Don't be using both. It just causes both. It opens up more cybersecurity holes and it makes it difficult for staff. So we think an organisation should pick a non-profit collaboration platform. The reason we pick these two is you can use either at no cost. You can also use either for cost as a non-profit, depending on the level of sophistication and feature sets you need. You need to get the right partners. We do find that that's often can be difficult. It can either be internal or it can be external, and then work through and make the most out of those collaboration platforms. Whether it's Teams for video conferencing, file sharing, email, chat, instant messaging, etc. Upgrade your training staff to support them through those changes, and upgrading your IT infrastructure to be cloud first rather than on-prem focused, and refreshing devices to support mobile operations. That's laptops, that's mobile phones. We have seen a lot of organizations actually eliminate their or significantly reduce their desk phone spend. And transition significantly to mobiles for that mobility and for cost savings as well. So that's the tech foundations. There is detail underneath that, which I won't talk through, but the tech foundations, these are the levels of challenge through to advanced for each of the different categories within the tech foundations domain. And so if you're interested, there's more detail inside there in the slide pack that Amy will send out, or the team will send out afterwards. I'm going to cover data and systems, because this is really one that it's really important to get right to support your staff delivering the services that they need. We do say start, if you're starting down a journey of improving your data and systems environment for your organization, we actually say start by thinking about what data you need to collect and how you need to work. And the reason we suggest you start with that is different systems have different abilities to support that. But if you start with thinking about what are you measuring, both from a contractual perspective and as well from an organizational perspective, so that you can deliver the services you need to your clients, then you get your core systems in alignment with that. All right, so after identifying your requirements. We're seeing a lot of organizations, and I'll cover this in a second, the Data Catalyst Network, really starting to focus on how is it that we can make the most of the data we have. Where do we understand what data is really required for good decision-making processes and targeting, and where is it more optional and it's not the #1 priority to get right. Once you've got all that under control, it's also about finance, HR, and supporting systems. And so often there is quite a lot there to work through. In terms of the roadmap, we've been building this out as part of the Data Catalyst Network. So not only is it important to think about your service delivery systems, but also around your data tools, your analytics, and your data culture and leadership. And so getting those aspects right so that you can focus on what is it as an organization that you need to measure, understand, and make sense of. For instance, at the basic level, at the data tools and infrastructure, data is clean and sufficient for reporting and analysis purposes. To move up to intermediate, you're then using cloud-based storage. Oops, sorry about that. Cloud-based storage and analytical capabilities. Regular KPI reports are primarily automated. We're seeing more and more organizations, whether they're in the Salesforce environment and using Tableau, whether they're in the Microsoft environment and using Power BI, whether they're in the Google environment and using, I've forgotten what the Google one is because it's just changed its name, but getting those right, is really important to think that through. Data culture and leadership is something that we're seeing a lot more organizations start to think about, because really your service delivery data is only, I'll say this, it's only useful if it's used to generate change. And yes, I know it's useful for impact reporting and all that stuff as well, but thinking about and helping staff to think about, how do I inform what I'm doing with an evidence base, and how is our service targeting, thinking about where our services have significant impact. It's really important to support staff understand why they're capturing the data they do in their day-to-day activities, so that they take the time to focus on data quality where it's important. Really quickly, digital marketing, challenge through to advanced. I'm doing this quickly because I'm suspecting we don't have a lot of digital marketing people on the call today. It's important to focus on building that capability over time. At challenged, digital marketing might have developed organically. It's not really a priority. Might have a static website and a social media account, through to basic, where you have an online presence that communicates to clients, supporters, and stakeholders via those sorts of challenges. And then intermediate and through to advanced, you're starting to get strategic in the way you're engaging your client base, and your volunteer / fundraising base. IT management, again, I'll do this relatively quickly. From our perspective, IT management's really important to focus on if A, you're not getting value in your technology spend, or B, you've got some sort of large digital transformation program that you're going to move down. If you're doing either of those, then you really want to be ratcheting up to at least the intermediate stage. Developing your 3-year roadmap, demonstrating value from digital technology, and starting to ratchet down the things or fix the things that you're spending too much on, and focusing on where you can actually get that value. CyberSec, I'll cover this just for a minute or two, because this is a challenge that we have seen a lot of organizations start to pay more attention to, largely because there's a lot of gaps in their cybersecurity protections. And number one, we say, please get the basics in place, right? That means multi-factor authentication for all internet-facing systems. Usually that includes some sort of collaboration platform like Microsoft 365, and it includes your core service delivery platform if that's in the cloud, which many of them are these days for organizations. It also means that you've got patching under control, so you don't have devices that have out of date from a security patch perspective. It means ensure that you've educated your staff as to how to spot a phishing email or text. You have looked at your data backups and you've confirmed that they're good enough. I'm not saying you're backing up everything, but you've considered it and you've got that under control. You got some spam filtering, antivirus firewalls, and another one which still we still see breaches on this. It's pretty frustrating, where someone leaves the organization but their account is not disabled, and it's not really it's not an IT protection, it's just a process that needs to be followed. But we're still seeing someone left the organization a year ago, 6 months ago, they've still got access, they shouldn't, they've then accessed stuff that's inappropriate, and shared that, and just making sure those basics are in place is really important. So the cybersecurity, getting out of that challenge space for us is a priority for organizations. I do want to talk very briefly about the Data Catalyst Network, because it's an exciting initiative that we've been working with. And essentially the Data Catalyst Network is funded by the Paul Ramsey Foundation, and it's seeking to break cycles of disadvantage. So very much what we're looking at doing is how can we use data to stop people going through cycles of disadvantage of, whether it's intergenerational, whether it's location-based disadvantage, whether it's, cycles within their life cycle. And building an enduring network of people in the not-for-profit community sector, together with government, academic and business, who use data to really catalyse social change and improve the data capability and impact measurement of organisations. We're running regular, every 3 to 4 weeks, meetings with the Data Catalyst Network community of practice. And this is really designed for organisations with research, evaluation or data analytics staff. We kicked it off in early May, so earlier this month. That was attended by about 49 people. And we've scheduled webinars every 3 to 4 weeks from non-profits, industry, academia, helping organisations to build their data capability. What we've got running over the next couple of webinars, we've got the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare talking about family domestic violence data collection and building an evidence base for improved services. We've got Societel talking about open data and breaking silos and whole of sector approach. We've got Mission Australia being very kind, taking a deep dive, talking about both successful and not so successful data projects, findings and failures. It's always just as good to learn from the things that you don't quite get right. Anthony McCosker from Swinburne University talking about measuring and developing data capability. He's written some great papers, and he'll be expanding on some of his work on data maturity and data capability on Thursday, the 17th of August. And then we've got the Benevolent Society talking. We think about their data strategy, and they're going to dive deep into a couple of areas in their data strategy as well. So what we try and do with the Data Catalyst Network is talk both, is get both government engaged, because for better or worse, they do hold data that we don't have in the not-for-profit sector. We try and get the for-profit sector where they've got experience of value to us and where we can learn, such as Societel, as well as academics, etc., bringing that best practice research together. If you want to know more, feel free to ask in the chat or contact Kristen Muller-Saxon if you're interested in joining. So if you're keen to build your data capability, if your organisation has someone with a research or a data a data lead responsibility, would love to have you reach out to Kristen and talk about where you're at and look to join. And you can see the webinar program, which has been building over the last couple of weeks. So it's roughly every 3 to 4 weeks is what we're planning. Another thing that we do, so whereas the Data Catalyst Network is really focused on more sophisticated organisations that have research evaluation or data lead roles, the Digital Transformation Hub is focused on organisations that might be smaller in size, digitaltransformation.org.au. And you can see the 5 domains there that I talked through earlier: tech foundations, info systems, digital marketing, IT management, cybersecurity. And what the hub really does is provides a range of guides and a self-assessment to work out where you're at in your digital capability journey. These are some of the areas that that the hub has seen significant interest in. So you can see there sort of tech foundations, and that's really, I think, come out of COVID, and where organisations are looking to uplift their tech foundations. 31% of requests to the hub have been around that tech foundation space. And there are links here to the most popular, or some of the most popular guides that are within the hub. Systems and data being the next most popular, sort of around client case management systems, picking new systems when your existing one doesn't work properly, and getting started with data and reporting. IT management is sort of third cab off the rank, then digital marketing, and unfortunately, but we're seeing this sort of now start to build ahead of steam. Cybersecurity was the least most over the past 12 months, the domain that organisations asked us the least about or accessed guides least most. What's available in the hub is these 5 areas. That capability assessment, so you can see where you're at. Are you basic, challenged, advanced, etc. We've got about 100 digital guides to help you on your digital journey. You can ask an expert. So if you need a hand with something, we've got a bunch of volunteers who are non-profit digital specialists that we'll try to connect you in with, who can help you with a particular problem. Range of training resources, technology discounts through connecting up, and case studies so you can see how others have done it as well, which is really about helping organisations learn from each other. I will touch very quickly just on if your organisation is taking a larger or considering a larger digital transformation program. This is our 10 steps to developing a digital transformation roadmap. And this is really about what we're finding is organizations are saying, look, we've had a piecemeal approach to our technology environment for many years, and it's not really delivering the value that we need. We really need to start to think about how is it that we can strategically build our technology platforms so our staff can really make a difference and deliver services effectively. And it's also about how can we capture the data and protect our information so that we can articulate our impact and attract new funds, volunteers, etc. It's interesting. McKinsey did a study the other day. More than 50% of digital transformation programs fail. That's the same in the not-for-profit sector as it is in the commercial sector. Most of them take 5 years or more to complete. So this is not a short journey. That's the comment I would make. And from our perspective, it's really important not only to get, think about your strategic goals as an organization, but then to start with why. Why would you bother going through and spending an effort undertaking this journey, a digital transformation as an organization? So what is it that you're trying to achieve as an organization? Why is tech not working? Where do you want to be in the future? And that might be, we just can't measure our impact. We've got no evidence base for our clients. Our staff are frustrated with our systems. It's really difficult to work from home. It might be all of the above, but that's starting with the why and making sure it's really important and you've got that clear and the organization agrees is critical. There's then a bunch of additional steps. So evaluate your current capabilities, get the buy-in of the exec and board, identify your courses of action, formulate priorities, develop the roadmap, get the right partners, stakeholder engagement, and then you can get started. So there's sort of, if you're considering going down that larger digital transformation program, and there's more detail in one of the hub guides here, it's something that we would suggest you take the time to get right. Don't just go, oh, yep, it's budget time, let's do a digital transformation. I did want to also cover the top transformation recommendations in terms of what do we think is important, not for a digital transformation, but for what is it as an organization, if you want to improve your technology, what are our top tips? So number one, have a plan. Don't try and do everything at once. We find it's really interesting. In the survey, I actually didn't show the data, I should have. We look at where are you at from as an organization. You know, are you down at the challenge space? Are you up in the advanced leading space? The biggest indicator or the biggest correlation between is with whether or not you have an IT plan. If you have an IT plan, you are 3 to 4 times more likely to be out of that problem space down the bottom, down in the challenge. So the IT plan and getting that plan in place is absolutely critical, because that will help you not try to do everything at once. Pick a non-profit collaboration platform, use it well. That's not something that can be done in 3 or 6 months. Usually it's a year or more of effort to bring everyone on board and undertake that journey. Number 3, I've covered this enough probably, cybersecurity, take it seriously. Number 4, move to the cloud. Why move to the cloud? It enables remote working. It gives you non-profit discounts, and it automatically updates itself into the future. So there are challenges with moving into the cloud. You need to deal with your internet, you need to deal with security, etc. But also the benefits in our experience outweigh, for most organisations, outweigh the problems. If you're in rural Queensland, yes, I know the NBN's not good enough. No, I don't have a magic wand to fix that. And that's where we often recommend, as much as I probably shouldn't, as much as I may not like the man that owns them, Elon Musk's Starlink satellites are a cost-effective solution as well. Number 5, deliver services digitally is really important. Thinking about how you can change service delivery for your clients, particularly to support more rural and to reduce paperwork and administration overhead. Number 6, use a core service delivery system that suits your services. Try and use only one, don't try and use 5. Make the most out of it. The more there are, the harder it is to get that holistic view of client services. Train your staff, develop your data capability, get your digital marketing right, and your tech partners right. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to just move quickly on the last slide. A bunch of additional links and resources which will be sent out shortly. The link to the 2023 survey, I might just click on that very quickly just so that you can. So there we go, about 15 minutes to do. Thanks, Amy, for already sharing it in chat. The other link I'll mention is Cybersecurity 101 training for non-profit staff. We used to say, please train your staff in how to manage cybersecurity risks. Everyone nodded and then were too busy to do it. So we're now piloting a self-paced learning course, so you can see it here, for cybersecurity to help staff understand the key challenges to keeping information safe, avoid data breaches, using the 7 tips to cache or identifying phishing emails and messages and protecting sensitive information. You can just share this with your organisation staff in your organisation. We'd love a bit of feedback because it is piloted at the moment. If they enter their name and their email address, they will then get a certificate at the end. So if you need to track completion and they get 80% in the quiz at the end, they will get that certificate at the end for completion tracking as well. Just back to the slide set. And a bunch of other resources there that hopefully you'll find value. Amy, no one's asked questions as we've been, so any last minute questions, and I will hand back to you.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be any questions come through yet. Did anyone want to take themselves off mute to ask a question? Be brave. I've shared the links as you were talking through them. So I've shared the survey, the current survey link, as well as the previous year's report, and also a link to the Digital Transformation Hub, and some information about the Data Catalyst Network. So yeah, thank you very much, Marcus. That was a very comprehensive overview. Really wonderful to see some Queensland stats, because that I don't think is published.
It's not published
Yeah.
anywhere. So yes,
So
you'll get the slide set, and then you will have it.
exactly.
Everyone on the call will
Yeah.
have it.
Yeah, no, really great to see. I believe there should be a transcript. Maria might know more about that. But I could definitely share the links with you, Kate. After the meeting, we can contact you individually if you'd like.
It is
And
being recorded as well, and I
yes,
think there'll
it's
be a
absolutely.
transcript of the recording.
Yes, yeah, definitely being recorded, and that will come through in a post-event email. You covered so much today. So I guess my reflections were definitely, the importance of that Queensland data. I feel like I was quite surprised actually that we're kind of lagging behind, but I'm really hoping Queensland organisations get behind the survey this year, and maybe we can tell a different story in 12 months' time. So that'll be really exciting to see next year's data being released, or this year's data being released. So yeah, the survey is open now. What day do you know when it closes? It's sometime in June, isn't it?
11th of June it was off the top of my head.
Ah, wonderful, my birthday.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, okay. So I don't think we have any questions. I've got a couple more slides to go through if people are happy to stay online for that. In my reflections, yeah, it was really great overview of the 5 technology domains. I really liked the digital capacity, how you kind of outlined the different stages that organizations could be at. And I think having those actions to actually take away with you, understanding and assessing where your organization is at, and then some really useful tools, the data tools, and even the mention around data culture, because that's our next webinar focus as well. So
there you go.
The roadmaps are all really useful. Yeah, those slides are going to be really valuable for everyone, I imagine. So there's just some comments in the chat saying great information and resources. Thanks, Marcus. And oh, you already responded. Wonderful. Okay, so I'll just go through the last of my slides. I'll start sharing my screens again. Here we go. So yeah, really appreciate your time today, Marcus, and we really look forward to engaging further with Infoxchange. And I'd also really encourage everyone to get involved with the Data Catalyst Network. I think it's a great opportunity to continue learning. Like on top of our research evaluation network, it's another opportunity to engage with all of this, great data capability work that's happening at the moment. So before we go, I wanted to share some upcoming webinars and opportunities that you may like to get involved with. So along with the Infoxchange survey that's online at the moment, we're also, I wanted to mention that we're currently partnering with PlayScore to participate in the 2023 Australian Livability Census. So in 2021, PlayScore facilitated the first national livability census with 44 local governments participating, and over 32,000 records were collected directly from people across the country. And so the census is held every 2 years, and it's a large social research data set regarding livability, values and performance. And it captures community values, strengths, priorities, with both qualitative and quantitative data, including what is most important to you in your ideal neighbourhood and what would make your neighbourhood a better place to live. The census is available in English, Mandarin, Arabic and Hindi, and we'd really appreciate community services distributing and promoting the survey to reach community that you serve, and to demonstrate our capability as a sector to capture a diversity of voices and perspectives. And the survey is open until 30th of June. If you'd like to promote the census to any of your networks, our unique URL is on the screen, and I'll share that in the chat as well. We also would like to invite you to our budget breakfast event on Thursday, the 15th of June, from 6:15 to 8:45 at Victoria Park Function Centre. The Honourable Cameron Dick, MP, Queensland Treasurer and Minister for Trade and Investment, will join QCOS CEO Amy McVie for a special in conversation to discuss the 2023 state budget and unpack what it could mean for community services and the people we strive to help every day. So the tickets are on sale now with a special discount available to QCOS members. Also, I thought I would flag you can access our Research and Evaluation Network webinar recordings and resources on the Community Door Research and Evaluation Resources Hub page. And we also have an online forum if you would like to connect with our Research Evaluation Network outside of the webinars. We also have this forum that sits within the Microsoft Teams platform, currently have 66 members. And so joining the forum is a two-step process. If you haven't already done this, you can submit a request to join the forum through our website using an EOI link, which I will share in the chat as well. And so when we receive this request form, we'll then add you as a guest user and send you a welcome message to the forum. And also I've included the draft plan for the network for 2023 for your reference. So we have no scheduled webinars for June. So you might like to engage with the Data Catalyst network in June as well. And then our next research evaluation webinar is on the 27th of July, which is around building data-driven culture, key principles for community service leaders. So that will be with a guest speaker, Ruth Knight from the Australian Centre for Philanthropy and Not-for-Profit Studies. And I'll send an email out when registrations are live on our website. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us today and engaging online with today's discussion. So that we do have some polls that we're just, you should be able to see on your screen that we've shared a little while ago. And we'd really appreciate some feedback on how we went today. I hope everyone has a wonderful week and thank you all again for joining us, and we look forward to connecting in July. And Marcus, I'm sure we will speak again soon. Thank you very much for all of your involvement with today's webinar.
Thanks, everyone.